Hey, what's up? John Charette here, and today we are jumping into a pretty big comparison, the iPhone 13 Pro Max versus the iPhone 16 Pro Max. If you've been wondering what's really changed and if it's worth the upgrade, you're in the right place. Okay, first up, let's talk design and build. I mean, at first glance, they look pretty similar. The iPhone 13 Pro Max has a classic iPhone kind of stainless steel look, shiny back on it. Big, triple camera bump, like I say, pretty standard. Now the iPhone 16 Pro Max, it does take it up a notch with a titanium body. But other than that, it's just a few subtle tweaks. First, we have an action button here instead of the typical just vibration on and off. Still don't really use it all that much other than exactly what it is, just the silent. But I mean, you could, which is pretty cool. The camera slider option. Like I said, I've only used it once or twice. Still not really a fan of it, but let me use the phone for a little longer to see how well I can use it. But those are some of the two big things. Other than that, USB-C, which will come into things later, but that is a huge improvement, absolutely. And then color options. So I mean, with the iPhone 13 Pro Max, I went with the Sierra Blue. And with the 16 Pro Max, I decided to go with the Desert Titanium. Now thinking that it would be more like the gold that came out when the 13 Pro Max came out, I don't know. I'm super disappointed. It actually looks more pinky to me. Every time I look at it, it kind of has like this yellow pink look. I don't know, let me know what you think. I've been super on the black and gold Pro Art vibe right now, and I was really hoping this would be more gold so that I could put a black case onto it, but it's not the case, so oh well. And then lastly, if you are in Canada, you still have your SIM card slot on the side here. But if you're in the States, they did remove this for the 16 Pro Max, which means you do have to use an eSIM. Let me know, is anyone actually using an eSIM? Is that pretty common? Like I said, I'm not using one yet, but please let me know. Now, onto the screens. Both have a gorgeous 120 Hz ProMotion OLED display, but there are some key differences. Right now you can already see the bezel. Here, let me get them going. You can see the bezel around here is just much bigger. Here, let me get a little bit closer. You can see, hold on, that's my camera. You can see a little, definitely a smaller bezel on the 16 Pro Max. And then of course there's the island up top. This is a floating one, and then you see on the old one, it's kind of your typical island. Speaking of that, the dynamic island, we will talk about that later. We'll kind of get into some software updates. Size-wise, this is 6.7 inch, and this one is 6.9 inch. The actual device itself is slightly bigger. I match the bottoms up. You can see it's just a tiny little bit bigger. I wouldn't say it's 2 millimeters bigger, but it's at least a millimeter or so bigger. What else? Okay, the new iPhone 16 Pro Max is a 2000 nit screen, where this is a 1200 nit screen, which the brightness is probably one of the biggest things that I appreciate. And then lastly, this one has a new ceramic coating, but I'm gonna test that. It's thicker, it's supposed to be better for braking and stuff like that. So the biggest differences for me is the brighter screen, and then also the always on display. Now, I didn't like the always on display when it was at its default state. Let me see if I can put it back to there right now. Let's see here, display, brightness. Always on, show all brand notifications here. So this is what it was like before. It would actually show it kind of just a little bit. And I had, like a picture of me and my wife there, and it was great. But then it also shows all your notifications. And I don't hide my notifications. So for me, I was like, oh gosh, people are seeing my notifications. They were coming up all the time. It was very distracting. So what I have done is I have turned off the wallpaper and turned off notifications so that it still shows if I get a notification at the bottom, but it doesn't actually show it. But this whole showing the clock is actually amazing. I use it a lot more. I have my phone there, and I can just always see what time it is, versus I actually find myself using my Apple Watch a lot less because of the always on display on my phone. So that was interesting, and I didn't expect that. Okay, let's talk performance. Like I said, the 13 Pro Max is powered by an A15 Bionic chip. It's still a beast. Like, it still runs anything super fast and loads things up. I mean, it's fast. I mean, I'm really happy with it. But let me get out of here. The 16 Pro Max is now running an A18 Pro, which is absolutely faster. But here, we'll run it through some benchmarks. Here, let's go open up Geekbench 6, and let's run it through a couple tests, and I'll throw on the screen here what you're gonna see. Okay, so coming back, we have the iPhone 13 Pro Max with a single core score of 2,396, and then a multi-core score of 5,487. Now, comparing that to the iPhone 16 Pro Max has a single core score of 3,459, which is 30% faster, and then a multi-core score of 8,157, which is 33% faster. Now, considering that this phone is 3 years newer with a 10% increase per year, it seems about right. Looking at the GPU benchmarks, the GPU on the 13 Pro Max is at 20,726, and the 16 Pro Max is 31,889. It's actually 35% faster. So, I mean, depends. Are you playing a lot of games? Are you doing a lot of 3D rendering with your phone? That could matter. Other differences between these two phones is that the newer one has 8 gigs of RAM and the old one has 6 gigs of RAM. And then last but not least on their performance is that the 13 is Wi-Fi 6 and the new one is Wi-Fi 7. Now, I don't have a Wi-Fi 7 access point yet, so I cannot test that. But yeah, it would absolutely be faster with Wi-Fi 7. Overall, it's definitely faster, no doubt. Do you need the extra punch? I mean, as I said, the 13 Pro Max is pretty darn good. And I mean, I don't play a lot of games, so for me, it was still pretty good. So the performance actually isn't a big important factor to me. Day-to-day use, it doesn't make any difference. All right, so cameras are a big one. Both have incredible kind of 3-camera lens setup. But they really made some strides with the iPhone 16 Pro Max. The 13 Pro had a 12 megapixel kind of main camera lens, telephoto lens, ultra wide, and then they had LiDAR detection for kind of low light. So everything's the same there, except we have a 48 megapixel main camera with a 5x zoom on the 16 Pro Max, whereas this guy only had a 3x zoom. I'm gonna create a separate video specifically for cameras, like how they perform with pictures, videos, so stay tuned for that one. And then I already mentioned the camera, wrong side, the camera slider. It's, here, can I even show it here for a second? Yeah, I mean, it's okay, but I don't know, there's just like a, do I really care? Like, couldn't I just do this? We're so used to pinching and zooming, why did I need another something on I don't know, I'm not sold. Battery life. Okay, the iPhone 13 Pro Max already has an impressive 4,352 milliamp battery that lasts supposedly up 28 hours of video playback. I always find these stats hilarious because, I mean, when using this phone now for the past 3 years, it lasts a day. I mean, there may be 20-30% down at the end of the day, but you just charge it and you go again. I don't know who's watching something 28 hours straight. But I mean, I'll say that my wife had the 13, just the normal 13 Pro, and the 13 Pro Max was absolutely better for battery. It's just a bigger battery. I mean, that goes without saying. But the 16 Pro Max does have a slightly larger 4,685 milliamp battery. And then the new A18 Pro chip is more power efficient. It says, from Apple that you can get 33 hours of video playback. So I mean, it really depends how you're using the phone, but from what I've noticed, you get an extra hour or two. As for charging, the new iPhone 16 Pro Max has upgraded the MagSafe wireless charging from 20 watts up to 25, which is nice. I still don't have an adapter that'll go that fast, but I'm sure they will catch up soon. Okay, when it comes to software, they're both running iOS 18, and they both run them extremely well. I mean, obviously you get the dynamic island on everything 14, 15, 16 and up, which is pretty nice. Also 15 and 16, you get your always on display, which I mentioned is actually pretty cool. But I mean, really the only thing new to the 16 Pro Max is Apple Intelligence. Let me see if I can find Apple Intelligence and Siri. Okay, so I did have it on a while ago during the iOS 18.1 beta a few weeks back. I actually turned it off. Because it was just weird. I don't know. I mean, it was summarizing my notifications that were coming in, and it's not that it was doing it incorrectly. It was just that it was, I don't know, it was weird that it was taking my stuff and then slapping it on to kind of a summary versus me seeing each notification. There's something, I kind of like to know exactly what the notification is and not leave it to AI to determine. I don't know. I'll give it another shot once it's matured a bit. But yeah, to me, I'm not sold on that so far. All right, let's talk prices. Both phones here, they're both 256 gig phones, and they were the exact same price at $1,200 USD. So, I mean, that's actually not bad considering the COVID inflation prices and, you know, supply chain issues that have happened over the past 3 years, that this phone didn't get more expensive. So, is the iPhone 16 Pro Max worth the upgrade? If you're looking for a 30% boost in performance, a bigger, brighter display, better cameras, then yeah, it's a big upgrade. It's a good upgrade. But if the 13 Pro Max is serving you well and you don't have any issues, and you don't play a lot of games, it might be worth keeping. Considering that Apple Intelligence is pretty new and I still don't really know where they're going with it, you're not missing much. So yeah, I mean, the dynamic island and always on display is nice, but you could always go get a 15 Pro Max and save yourself a few extra bucks. Still get those options. And USB-C is absolutely a great upgrade, especially if you're recording in ProRes. But like I say, I'll do a video all about photos and videos later, so stay tuned to that one. All right, so that's the breakdown. I mean, let me know which way you're leaning. Please leave a comment down below. Stay tuned for the next one, and we will see you soon. Thanks.